Hello everyone. So this is part 4 in my series on tactics of the modern day left, and this is one that I've wanted to talk about for some time, but I must confess at the outset that I don't have all the answers. This is a very difficult topic for me to discuss, mainly because I'm not a psychologist. What I'm going to talk about is something that's very psychological, something that is very requires a bit of understanding. So I'm going to give you my opinion and my observations, but bearing in mind I'm not a trained professional psychologist. I've read lots of papers and other people's insights. So please, if there's anybody out there watching this video and they're a psychologist, or you know someone who's a psychologist who knows quite a bit about this subject, please get in touch with me, because I would just love, not to make a video or anything, but I would personally like to understand more about this particular subject. And the subject is lying. So one of my favourite chapters in Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life is the one entitled Tell the Truth, or at least Don't Lie. But what I've seen in recent years, let's just digress for a moment. So my upbringing, I was born in the late 1960s, and I'm in my 50s now. And I was brought up, I was a child in the 70s and 80s, and I was brought up with the understanding that lying is wrong, and that if you are caught lying, there are serious consequences. And even if you aren't caught, the breakdown of trust between people, if people suspect you're lying, suspect that you're dishonest, the breakdown of trust. So I've always taken lying very seriously ever since I was a child. Now, that's not to say I have never lied in my life. I have, but I can tell you it's eaten away at my consciousness and my conscience. And I have been caught out lying in the past when I was growing up, and I suffered serious consequences for it, and those have stayed with me. So this gives me an aversion to lying. And I think there's different ways of lying, and when it comes to political lying in particular, the way the right does it, the way the centre does it, the way the left does it, I think are all different. They used to be fairly similar. And so one of the ways that most people do lying is that they don't go out to deliberately lie. What happens is something goes wrong. They don't want to be blamed for it. They want to get away with a mistake they've made. So it's what I call the hand in the cookie jar lie, which is that you get caught stealing from the cookie jar, and then you're trying to deny it's not what it seems. It's not what it looks like. I can explain. And you come up with a convoluted explanations why you haven't done the thing that you've blatantly have done. So there's that. And I think traditionally most politicians have been caught out by that one. Most politicians, when you see them lying, because they've been caught saying or doing something that they shouldn't have, and they kind of backtrack. One thinks of the former Liberal Democrat MP Chris Huhne, also Jonathan Aitken, Conservative MP, who I've met, and he was guilty of perjury, and he tried to get his family to perjure themselves on a witness stand. He actually went to prison because of that, suffered consequences. I met him after he had emerged from prison, and he had totally changed his life around, and studied to become a Christian pastor, and has gone on a different path because of that experience, because of being caught out lying and going to prison. So that's one thing. The other form of lying, and it's a kind of lie that people tell when they're in a position of responsibility, which is putting a false gloss on something. So downplaying something that's gone wrong, or overstating something that isn't as bad as it seems for effect. So this is the kind of other mainstream political lie that we've had since time immemorial. What I'm seeing in politics today, and particularly from the left, is the calculated lie being told in order to promote an entirely false narrative, i.e. what is known as gaslighting, or else to smear someone, to say something that's blatantly false about them, in order to whip up more hatred and fear towards another person. And I think there's been some attempt with that with both Nigel Farage and Carl Benjamin, that you see, and Ben Shapiro as well, that you see people on the left actually lying about them. We only have to see Chris Bryant, who has used parliamentary privilege to make assertions about Nigel Farage that are almost certainly not true. And that has led to consequences like his debanking, amongst other things. So we are seeing a kind of what's called calculated lying. So the other lies I was talking about, the kind of the gloss on things, to try and downplay something that's gone wrong, or the hand in the cookie jar lie to try and backpedal. These are what I call reactive lies. They're defensive lies. They're lies to protect a person, an individual, from serious negative consequences, even though being caught out lying has even worse consequences than if you told the truth in the first place. I think that most people in life have learned that lesson, that if they'd told the truth in the first place, it wouldn't be so bad later on. People in general are more forgiving if you've done something wrong but you're honest about it, as opposed to lying in order to try and minimize the damage. People are not so forgiving. So, but I'm talking about the calculated lie, and I'm trying to find the origins of that, because for me it was my parents and my teachers and like influential people in my life, like I was in the Scouts growing up, so it was Scout leaders, community leaders, clergy, people just in a position of authority, instilling in me this virtue that I needed to tell the truth, and if I told lies, I'd get into serious trouble. So I had that reinforced during my upbringing, and I suspect that's the same for most people. So why the calculated lie? So to look at the left, I see this constantly on social media, and there are a few who are persistent lies, where you start wondering if anything they say is true. So I've mentioned Chris Bryant. Chris Bryant is almost the king of the community notes on Twitter. He often says things, and people are just saying, no, that's not true, and here are the facts. But he keeps getting away with it, and ludicrously, he was appointed head of a parliamentary standards body, and he gets a knighthood for it. So a lot of people who follow him on social media know just the level of lying and dishonesty that he puts out. One also thinks of, I'm trying to remember, it might be Nadia Witomi, but it was a Labour MP who was stuck on a train. The train had stopped for a long period of time. And she put out on social media while sitting on the train, this is disgraceful. This is what privatised railways have done. And then the railway company itself said, actually, no, we're state-owned. So she was caught out saying something that wasn't true. Now, she might, at that time when she tweeted out, thought for some reason that the train company was still in private hands, not in state hands. But once caught out with that, once caught out from the horse's mouth, this is the actual train company correcting her on a factual mistake. What she should do is apologise and say, oh, sorry, I was wrong, delete the tweet. She never did. She kept it up there in order to stoke up her followers, to get them angry about the railways in this country, even though she's getting people angry at the concept of privately owned railways when in reality a lot of the railways in this country are state owned. And so you have that. You have Daniela Naj, who some people suspect might not even be a real person. But she's forever saying, I was in a restaurant and all the staff hate Brexit and all the staff can't understand the royal family and all the people sitting around me in this restaurant were saying, why is Britain a monarchy and why Brexit? And no, that stuff doesn't happen in real life. She constantly does it. I could name a number of other people. So this is tactical lying to create a false narrative, to stoke up the base, the followers who will just blindly accept anything that people in their political tribe say without question. Now, I'm not saying this is exclusively a left-wing problem, because it does happen on the right as well, particularly on what is known as the dissident right, a kind of right wing that flirts with authoritarian or totalitarian forms of government, and who seem to despise normal society as it stands, much like the left despise normal society as it stands. They're both kind of aiming for very similar points, but their journeys and the details of what they want are different. So I see lies on the right, and obviously there are certain political candidates on the right in the United States and the United Kingdom who lie. But what I see on the left is really an epidemic, and I just see it on social media all the time. Now, this is even going back a few years pre-Brexit. So in the early 2010s, so 2010 to 2015, I was seeing stuff on social media. You've probably seen this. It's a meme. And they go, on the left, and it has this virtually empty House of Commons chambers, about half a dozen people saying, this was the discussion, this was the debate about the Iraq War. And on the right, and it's a picture of the House of Commons in full attendance, standing room only. And go, this is the House of Commons, talking about giving themselves a pay rise. And that is really dishonest. It was debunked over and over again, but you'd be surprised how often this meme keeps coming back. The image on the left was about some obscure road planning discussion held late at night. It wasn't about the Gulf or Iraq War or anything like that. It was just a kind of very local issue that was being talked about in Parliament. And on the right was a shot from Prime Minister's Question Time, where all the MPs are required to attend. So it was a lie. And I saw this happening a few times, and I saw things from the Atheism Plus movement where they claimed that the Christian festival Easter is a death cult festival, and that it's corruption of a Mesopotamian god or festival called Ishtar. And it's not. The word Easter is derived from an Anglo-Saxon word, Yaster, and it's not a death cult thing at all. But I question people, the people who put out those memes about Easter and the one about the Houses of Parliament. And I said, but that's not true. And their response was, I know, but the issues are far too important to tell the truth. Because it's the goal. It is the goal. And this is something that I think differentiates the left from the right in general. I'm speaking in generalities here. But the left are very focused on the goal that they want to achieve. And the methodology is anything that gets them to that goal. Whereas I think the right are not so, that the right are dealing with things in front of them, not necessarily thinking of this long-term goal and what steps are needed to get there. This is why the right is so divided on, is there a culture war? If there is it a distraction? Is it made up? I'm thinking about the infrastructure and thinking about the economy. So the right their attention gets pulled all in different ways, whereas the left are very focused on end results. And for some of them, the tactical lie is the way of achieving that, because the issues are far too important to tell the truth. So I looked into this, I wanted to know where this is coming from. Where did people learn this? Because I was brought up with the idea that lying is bad and you shouldn't do it. And that was from my parents, my teachers, my community leaders. So where's it coming from? So I found an academic paper from Monash University in Australia. I tried looking for it again the other week, but either it's been memory hold or it's buried on page 10 of a Google search. So I didn't get much luck, but I do remember some salient points. I can't remember the name of the author, but it was from Monash University. I remember that. And it was looking into lying and activism. Is it justified? And this is a left-wing academic, and he was talking about lying and also political activism, the cause. And so he ponders a couple of things. First of all, the lie as a way of resisting the regime. So he's one of these people that believes there is a bourgeois regime. So you keep coming back to that theme of attacking the bourgeois. So there's a bourgeois regime which is propped up by the instruments of state, the police and the armed forces, and they are to be resisted. They are the enemy. So the lie told to protect activists from the brutality and the authoritarianism of the state. And he uses an example this. Imagine you are someone who owns a house, and you are in your house you've hidden Anne Frank and her family. You've hidden Anne Frank and some Jewish people in your family during World War II, and the Nazis knock on the door and say, do you have any Jews in your house? And of course, because you're a moral, upstanding person, you would lie to the Nazis. Everybody would lie to the Nazis because you're hiding people. If you tell the truth, those people will die, and you don't want those people to die, so you lie. This is the justifiable, morally justifiable lie, because you are dealing with a brutal, murderous state. And he then goes from that to you're helping some Antifa people, right? And the police come knocking saying, we suspect that you know people in Antifa, where can we find them? And you tell the tactical lie because PC Plod in the UK or Officer Dibble in the US is equivalent to the Nazi Guard. It's the brutality of the state. So you lie to protect your heroic activist friends. Okay, so that was one strand that he was talking about, lying. But then he was saying, in general, it's best not to lie. But this was interesting, his second major point of his paper, which was, is it acceptable to lie about other people, to smear them, in other words? Was this morally acceptable? And he said no. He said no, it's not good to smear and lie about a political opponent in order to discredit them. He said it was not morally justified. But his reasoning was this, is the fact that if you get caught smearing this person, if the person comes back with their lawyers and said, what you said about me is just not true, this is my lawyer, see you in court. He said, well, that will damage the cause. It will damage the cause if you are caught. So he's not saying that smearing people isn't morally wrong, because smearing people and lying and discrediting and bearing false witness is wrong. He's not arguing that. He's arguing about the consequences of being caught smearing someone. So I thought that was illustrative. It shows that a kind of slightly different morality for the way I was brought up and the way most people were brought up. A different morality is in place. We don't, for me, lying destroys a part of your soul. Okay, it's morally wrong. It hurts other people. It hurts you. It damages trust. It weakens the bonds between people. Okay, whether you're the kid who lies to his parents, and that sort of affects the bonds there, to letting down your friends, your teachers, your work colleagues, the people in your community. So that's why most people have an aversion to lying. It's because the damage it afflicts. But in the eyes of the left, it's more about, can you get away with a lie? And the consequences if you're caught out lying, because sometimes it's good to lie because of a bigger moral imperative, of this bigger idea. The issues are too important to tell the truth. And I don't know where this comes from. I don't know. I sometimes I get frustrated on social media with left-wing activists who lie. And I said, you are a failure of parenting. Because at some point, I don't know if it was a parent, I don't know if it was a teacher or a community leader, but somebody in your life at some point told you it's okay to lie and you should go out and do it, and you're fully justified in doing this. And of course, what has happened is that there are no penalties for lying on social media. Absolutely none whatsoever. We still have libel laws, we still have things like that, but it's increasingly difficult. I mean, to have a look at the Aaron Banks versus Carol Cadwallader, the amount of effort that had to be put in, the amount of expense that had to be put in just to prove that somebody who's smearing you is lying. So it is a very, very tricky process, and there's no consequence. What happens now is, and I'll talk about another tactic, which is the fire and forget. So what happens is that somebody, political activists, will lie on social media and then protect. They will disable replies to that. So what happens is that lie, as the saying goes, the lie goes around the world twice before the truth has even got its boots on. And that's how it works. And there's no disincentive for lying. There's no consequence. There's no negative consequence for this kind of political activist lying. And I think that's very worrying. And I don't know where it comes from. You have to keep telling the truth. Thank goodness we have community notes. Thank goodness we have just enough people on social media who do tell the truth, who do care about the truth, who put things into the proper context, who fill in those missing bits of information that left-wing activists leave out deliberately. But it's bloody hard work. But it has to be done. But you should be aware of this. And I want to reach out to psychologists out there, to people who know a lot more about psychology and have practiced it at a professional level. Where does this line come from? Why did it become normalized? Has there been a change in parenting? Has there been a significant change in teaching? Has society's morals about lying just gone away within 30, 40 years? Has that changed? What is going on? Why do people do it? Is it narcissism? I'd love to know more. I really think this is putting aside left versus right, I think the biggest problem facing the world, facing humanity at the moment is the battle for truth and honesty. And we have these fact checkers who don't do that. We have verification people who are lying. The people who are supposed to be speaking truth lie. There's been a whole inversion of our values. And it makes a mockery of fact checking, makes a mockery of verification. I want to know more. I want to know what's going on. So please, I'm reaching out to people. Pass this video on, and just get in touch with me. Get in touch with me. Okay. Until next time, I'll do chapter 5, and but until then, have a good week.